It's like such an ingenious way to trick your brain.
Yeah, and turning losses into wins or reframing them as wins is exactly my kind of thinking. Okay, hello again. So, diving right into it, I don't know if this is really going to be a series, but this is a thing for us. You may or may not have seen on social media, I can't remember the person's handle right now. We'll put it on the screen if we learn how to do that by the time we post this. We will, which is...
We'll figure it out.
Gabriella Carr, and I'm currently on a journey to get rejected 1,000 times.
We were inspired by that, and I'm on a mission this year to get rejected more often. And so that's kind of become a mission for everyday people. You know, Tanya and I were talking about it. She saw it too, felt the same way. And really what we love about it is just the idea that, like, yeah, I mean, what we're all trying to do and navigate is so damn hard and difficult. And, you know, we all wish we could, I wish I could just be a director and just only write and not have to produce and understand the business side and sales and marketing and PR and styling and. But, you know, it's just not the way that works for us right now, right? No. I haven't seen it benefit anyone to opt out of those other things while trying to pursue this career and figure it out. Unfortunately, you know, either it's our blessing or curse that we were born with that trait that makes us think we can probably do it just as well as anybody can. And so what the idea of like this 1,000 rejections, the whole idea behind it is really just like, you know, on a mission to collect 1,000 rejections, right? Putting yourself out there one way or another as a way to, and really the thinking of it this is what I gleaned from it. Maybe her mission was different. Is that, yeah, the more rejection that you get, the closer you're going to be to that yes anyways, right? I think the post that I saw about it was that they had started this mission, and after the first 10 rejections, then there was a couple yeses, and it starts to change the thing. And that, I think that really is the case. I mean, I when
agree.
It comes to festivals even. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that that's definitely it. And I mean, I think the beauty of it is it's exactly like that saying of like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Like you have to put yourself out there. You have to be vulnerable. You have to try things because like, obviously that's the only way you're ever going to get anywhere. But the idea of just being able to reframe it for yourself of like, even the rejection is a win. So like you're losing ever. Right.
Yeah.
And so like just being able to switch that in your brain of just like, okay, well, even if I get rejected, like I'm not going to tick a box in that goal column, but I'm going to tick a box in this goal column. Right. So it's like you're productive either way. It's like such an ingenious way to trick your brain.
Yeah. And turning losses into wins or reframing them as wins is exactly my kind of thinking. And sometimes it's the kind of thinking that will like get you through. I think so much of what we're trying, like, it is all, you know, everything we're trying to do, all of us, it's all a Hail Mary, right? That whatever keeps things feeling hopeful, possible, and like it's still worth kind of going after makes a difference.
100%.
So, you know, on our road to being rejected more often, we're caught in 1,000 rejections, even once a day, 365, you know, we can go for that. And so what that just looks like is like one thing that we're trying to do for a current project that we have, whether it's a big swing, a small thing, you know, a producing partner we may need, someone casting, you know, pitching a script, whatever, just trying to put the ask out there and kind of see what returns. And we actually already saw a bit of this in the rollout when we were doing Dinner with Friends, right? You know, we had kind of late in the game had this idea to possibly partner with a bunch of restaurants to kind of do, you know, dinner with friends, get dinner with friends before
like
dinner with friends.
Yeah.
And see like which restaurants would like maybe give a discount or do something special or whatever for on. I mean, not all of them, but way more than we thought came on board, right? Giving like great discounts. I mean, even I say this all the time, but I'm still shocked. Like a Michelin star restaurant, right, said yes and was giving a great deal on like their menu, which I just like have never even heard of before in my life. So you really never know.
Yeah, exactly.
So to start this rejection journey, we're going to talk about it a bit with casting, right? And like the next project that we are, as a way that in which you can package a project and the way that we like to think of projects and some of the big swings that we're going after and some of the things that we have tried. I'm going to pause there actually before we continue. We could either go the way of, I do remember there's a version of it where we talk about the things we've already tried, or like in terms of name EPs, that kind of stuff, whatever we can go into the casting. We can just go into the casting thing and who we want to try to go after.
Well, let's go into the casting, because I'm sure we're going to get to, that this largely falls to you if we're taking a big swing, that you have to write a letter, or
Right.
you're the person, and then you can sort of log or go back to Ethan Hawke or whomever.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. So casting. So our next film, well, we have a few films kind of in the tank that are already written that we just want someone to help us finance so that we can shoot it.
Exactly. We all know that happens with, like, in a scenario like this, that casting is really so integral to getting financing. This movie, one of the movies anyway, is a much larger budget. Having cast attached tends to be the thing that will, like, help that happen. It's a bit of a chicken and an egg that we find ourselves in quite regularly, but for this one, we sort of are really trying to do that, right? In more earnestly than we have in the past, of like attach cast, hoping that will make a difference when we're packaging and sending in for financing.
Yes. And like, it really is a chicken and egg now, because in terms of the kind of cast you're looking for and the value and how that translates to investors versus, performance wise and that kind of thing, is also changing as well, and changes all the time too. But it is which kind of comes first. And, everyone wants someone else to have already committed to the thing. And so, which is kind of what's great about this 1,000 rejections thing, because there's a million things that could be done to try and get a project off the ground at any point in time. And when you get overwhelmed, nothing like just pick something and get turned down as a way to just move through the list of
just keep it going.
Just keep it going. Exactly.
Keep those rejections coming. No, but like, yeah, so essentially, like, we've all heard the idea of, like, a bankable star. That's what they're referring to, right? Of just like attaching somebody so that you can sort of have some better reassurance that the movie will make money, right? Based off of that name. That's quite different than like making a creative choice for casting, right? Like, so one is a very strategic, very financial, choice. And one is very much like, who is the right person that you want to cast? And it's trying, ideally finding the person that has both of those things, which of course there are tons of bankable, quote unquote, stars that are very talented and like deserve to be as successful as they are, but not everybody. And like, and there's tons of actors who also deserve to be that bankable and are not, right? And so it's, yeah, like we're often sort of just trying to find the balance of like, who we have access to, who do we like, and how do we reach those people? And if you have to make a choice, like, who are you going to preference? And that's largely your decision, right? Like, that's, as the director, you have that final call. You're the one who's going to be pitching out and trying to like either do the Hail Marys or fight for somebody that is, again, unbankable or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah. This happens. What was I going to say? Yes, it is largely my thing. I think the thing is, oh yeah, this was I was just going to say, which is, as a director, my artistic inclination typically is towards kind of breaking stars, right? Or launching, or people. I think one of the winning things, and was a real luxury with Dinner with Friends, right, was to not, and that's again a reason why we wanted to just do it any way that we could and not have to bring on too many partners, is because I don't want to have to care about how many followers the cast has or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I just wanted good roles and to offer them to good Canadian performers and see who came up, who really gelled the best, and have the luxury of not having to worry about making back a budget, right, in order for that to sway any of the decision making and have it truly be an artistic pursuit. But I think, the same ethos at which I casted Dinner with Friends was also evident in Bria, right? We're breaking Malika onto the scene, for lack of a better point, because I just like the authenticity that brings, right? I do think sometimes when you have certain name stars, they can outsize the thing so much that you're no longer watching this person's story or the character's story, you're watching this person do their best take, which is also entertaining in its own right? Like, I want to watch Leonardo DiCaprio as this person or as Jordan Peterson. It's fun to watch them do such a good job when you are a Meryl or a Denzel or what have you in playing that character and getting me to believe that.
For sure.
But that's what I'm signing up for. I'm not necessarily signing up just for the story to meet this person in their world kind of thing. Yeah.
And I think, this is like really playing to your strengths in particular. Like, you are very much an actor's director. Like, I think it's one of the things that you do so well is just to really pull out the best performance of your performers. And so, I mean, you know this, but it is, you know, like, so you're the perfect person. You're the perfect kind of director, right? To break new stars, because you actually can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you are going to get the performance that is going to, everybody's going to be like, wow, I haven't seen that person before. That was a crazy good performance.
Yeah.
And so I think like it's really worth leaning into, for the reasons I just said, but also because then it does becomes the value, right? Like the more that becomes kind of like your calling card, very genuinely and well earned. But like when there is a artist who's maybe wanting to up their game or change how the public perceives them or try something new or different, like you are very safe hands to be in to do that. And so that, wow, there's a huge, never mind. It becomes a real like selling point or like very persuasive for people who might not come on otherwise to come on with you particularly. So yeah, just to say that understanding what you bring to the table or what the role does and like who the players are really, I think, can matter quite a bit, especially after Dinner with Friends. I don't think there's anybody who's going to watch that and see how you managed 8 characters and like get such great performance out of very bona fide great performers, but like who wouldn't feel safe taking a chance on your next movie if they, you know, to be cast.
Well, thank you for articulating that so perfectly. That is exactly my intention, right? Like, I mean, I think if you have a profile as a director and you're trying to build to certain strengths and things, I want mine to be that like, and that even just the performers, right? That like a bit of that Wes Anderson special, even if you know you're going to work for scale, right? You're willing to do it because, you know, you want to be in the whimsy of a Wes Anderson world or work with him or that kind of thing. Obviously we make very different work, but I think it can only benefit me and, you know, to be attractive to performers, right? For them to want to come and play here and do interesting things with them. I need them because that's how the kind of interesting or not franchise-esque movie, right? Or original thing is going to really have a chance, right? Is with the right performers and things like that in the role. And for performers as they rise, right? To kind of feel like that I am a person that can help unlock that. So what that means though is that, so the kind of ethos and the ideal that we want, we need to now put this through a scheme of like through a way in which then it still gets us marketable cast and cast that is seen as bankable, but still meets some of the things that we're after quite organically, right? And not betraying character for that. And so we have these 2 films. One is called Girls Like Us, and it's a, you know, how do you describe it? A neo-Western action thriller. Is that how you described it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's about 2 young teenage girls who find themselves in a dicey situation with some drug dealers, and one of them ends up getting taken. And they are natural athletes, as we see throughout the film. They're cheerleaders, they surf, they dirt bike, and they kind of need to lean on that kind of physical prowess and rescue each other. And it's very much a film about, you know, I guess another film about the power of friendship, right? But it is very much about like reminding us who the heroes of our everyday lives are and kind of giving them that superhero treatment and giving them that kind of, you know, we just want to see 2 teenage girls rip around in the desert on dirt bikes, to be honest, is a big draw. Yeah.
Be girls, which also means you can be a total badass or like in kick-ass, right? Like the idea that they haven't been created in a lab, they haven't been training in the forest since birth, you know, like they haven't been hijacked. They have just been living their lives as girls do. And that does mean they're strong. That does mean they're athletic. That does mean that they are loyal and have friendship and are brave and courageous and all the rest of it. And we just put them in a situation where we can like jam all of that in there. But very much so, it is about trying not to make it be the exception, but be the rule, that like teenage girls are strong and brave and like amazing.
I mean, very much again to it's like the kind of film that everyday people want to make. We're looking at ordinary girls, but seeing the extraordinary strength that they can possess and harness when they need to.
Totally.
So there's that film. That film is sitting in the low 7 figures budget wise, right? But it is still low 7 figures when we're looking even in the, you know, $1 to $5 million range. In Canada, that's a hefty budget, but it's still in the low budget range, I think, like, you know, spoken of in that way internationally, but also in our territory as well. And then there's also another film called Meant to Be, which is a 2-hander, and it is about a woman who is who decides to go to Japan, is stuck artistically, having a bit of a, stuck somewhere between a quarter life and a midlife crisis, and decides to go on sabbatical in Japan. And while she's there, she runs into an old ex, and it kind of triggers a very before sunrise, before sunset kind of, revisit of their relationship and their dynamics while they kind of tour through the countryside. You can feel very much, you can see where Bria Mack and Bitches Love Brunch and Girls Like Us live on one side in terms of style, and Meant to Be, Dinner with Friends, Sinking Ship are definitely on one hand. And Meant to Be is a project we think we can pull off high six figures, but cheaper than Girls Like Us, right? So we kind of have two in the tank, like one that, can feel like a natural evolution budget wise, going from to closer to 700,000 or something like that for that budget, and then 2-3 million. But they're different genres, you never know, that kind of thing. We have both of those that are in play. I mean, we have a ton of other things in play, but those are the ones that are the most ready.
Yeah.
And so for casting, this is some of the stuff that we want to try. So just looking at Girls Like Us, I mean, one of the bigger things is, especially when the budget right now, it can also be relatively scalable, right? With a good, 500, like a good chunk of that being earmarked for cast and just kind of where the level of them are. It's interesting because we're looking for, and so there's a few ways in terms of like, I guess casting, we also mean packaging in this instance, in terms of things we want to try in order to try and package this film, right? And get some financing on board to kind of help close some gaps that we could with national funding. And so for that film, there's two leads. There's B and Carrie. They're young, kind of, they're teenagers. So we're looking for people who can play that age range, but also like, they need to have a kind of like, we don't want them looking too young necessarily. And they also can't be too known, I think, is one of the things. Like there's some casts where, there's certain people that might immediately come to mind, but I think one of the realities is certain people that we would have had to mind that would have been at the top of our list. By now, Tania first ideated the story for this project 6 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
So there's some people who were 16, 17 when we first thought of this project who are now 22 and might not look 16 anymore. Marseille Martin is definitely a person that has, like, whose name is Foda, as an interesting possible pivot for her, or even, as an EP for this kind of project, just in terms of what it represents and things like that, and the style with which we want to approach it with, and the messaging.
It comes up all the time though. Like that is just such a thing to remember, of like, these things take so long, but getting attached to the cast is really dangerous, right? Like if you really are, if you're writing something for someone in particular, or you really get your heart set on someone, like, I mean, unless it is of no consequence how old they are and like where they, what they look like and all of the rest. I mean, obviously everybody changes, and with between 4 and 5, 6 years, like that's a long time. And like, how many times are you going to do that? Find the cast, right? So like, I think at some point you and I just stopped looking. We're like, no, when we're ready to really package this thing, we know when we're going to go back in, then we will start this, because it's too heartbreaking to think that you have found someone and to, even just ideate in your head.
That's a good point. People ask me that oftentimes too, like, who are the dream cast that I'm like, I make independent films. I don't necessarily, like, I can't afford to have dream cast kind of thing, right? Or like, I mean, that's not true, but you get what I mean. Like, I just don't
totally.
see the value. If I want to make the thing this year, I don't know if Halle Berry is going to be the person that I'm writing this for, or what have you. There's of course dream cast that I would love to work with, but when I'm usually writing or ideating, right, like it's a kind of person that exists in the world, and then maybe if I either their personality naturally or something, they might spring to mind, but I don't innately think of big name cast for a lot of the stuff that comes to mind so far. Which is interesting. But
it's interesting. Like, I was talking to a colleague who's also a producer, and we were just having this conversation. And one of the things that she said really stuck with me, in terms of, I was basically saying that there's some people we couldn't go after even if we wanted to, just because, like, realistically of our size, right? Of like where we are in our careers. And she completely called bullshit. She was just like, we just made a movie. You've just directed a movie that is very character driven, right? There's a ton of people who might have, a filmography that like is 6 or 7 times longer than ours or yours, but they haven't made anything recently, right? Like,
Right.
and of the people who have made anything recently, how many of them have made something that is so well received and so well respected, right? So
Yeah.
there is something to being active. And I don't know, she was just saying a lot of things. I was like, you're right. This isn't just a pep talk. This is like, it's a very legitimate ambition for you to go out and like try to like reach out to cast that you want, even if it seems like a long shot, because it might just not be as a long shot as we think.
Well, I think this is kind of what brings me back to the rejection thing, right? Which is like, I'm very much a person, admittedly, it's so funny because there's just some areas in my life where I have no fear. I'm like, this is part of it. I'll just do the thing or whatever. And I don't know if because I already have such a high threshold in other spheres, there's just some things that like I'm totally one of those people where you called me this thing once, I can't remember what it is, but also the high functioning whatever. But one of those people, I don't know what the term is. The other thing I'm thinking of is something TikTok diagnosed me with. Like, it's basically we're like, the perfection thing, right? If I try it once and I'm not that good at it, right? Or the thing where I don't get, and maybe this a bit with the ADHD, the dopamine hit isn't there or whatever, I'm kind of like, right? Like, it's very hard for me to want to keep sending, because that's part of it, right? Is like, there's some people, because I hear that, and then my brain's like, but I've tried to reach out to this person or what, and we didn't hear anything back. It just felt like you're throwing something into such a void. I think with so many of it would be different because I think this is the hardest part in our industry, is that, or maybe I guess for a lot of things, that sometimes rejection is not an explicit reply, right? Like, you don't necessarily get if these people places were just like, never in a million years, like, and you got that, then you could take that, right? That's something you can take and move on. But it's that you send it into the void and you're like, does this person even check this email? Is this the email? I don't know. IMDb Pro said this was their agent. I don't fucking know, kind of thing.
I think for me, it's really like, I totally agree with what you're saying. And like, I can relate to that. But for me, I feel like it's more of a confidence or like stepping out of line kind of thing, which is stupid and isn't really my personality. Like, I don't care. But, like sometimes, like, I'm just worried about, like, what am I trying to say? It's as if I am projecting onto somebody receiving an email from us.
Yeah.
And they're saying like, oh, you don't know, like, you guys are like punching so far above your weight.
Totally,
you're just
totally.
immature.
I feel
or
the
like
same way too.
So inexperienced, like you don't even know that how like out of pocket this is for you to even try. And like, that's really my fear. And like, so what my friend was really sort of drilling down on is like, there might be some people who will frame it that way or see it that way of like, who are you to talk to me kind of thing. But like, A, F those people. And like, B, that's not true, right? Like that's, like, if there is an answer to like, well, who do you think you are? I think I'm somebody who just made a very good movie and wants to make another one. Right.
Yeah. And no, but that's usually my thinking for everything else, which is if somebody even did look at it like that, what do I care? That I don't want to work with them anyways, right? That's my thinking of it. But I think it's the like voidness of it or something. I don't know. But anyways, we're gonna do away with that and try to do more of this. And so we're looking for. That's a cast for girls like us that we're eyeing. One of the things that we're super into, and I think I want to say her name is Jennifer Venditti or something like that, who does Euphoria, and I think some of the Safdie films, is becoming very popular again for this kind of casting that I felt pretty popular when I was growing up anyways, but the like, cross-pollinating kind of casting, or the real person kind of casting. And so one of the things we're going to lean into, again, so we don't betray that we think is the right move to help us not betray authenticity. That being said, there definitely are a few people who will hit the bankability score and are day in, day out actors as well, right? But with everything we ideate, because we're an independent operation, there's always the like micro budget, low budget, high budget version, right? So that, if we get enough things assembled, right? Or if not this, then that, then this is the tier that we're looking at. And we try to kind of ideate for every version of that. And so while we'll also go after some of those bigger swings, we're looking into like, so they're athletes, and they're athletes by trade and by choice, right? And so cross-pollinating from that world, right? Who are the top like motocross stars? Places that, Tanya, this great point, which is like, that to us, if you don't follow that sport, you would never know them, right? But like, there's rallies of tens of thousands of people that are coming out to come and see these athletes perform in these different
100%.
ways, that have their kind of niche, that would love to come and support them and follow them in this kind of thing, and they naturally feel comfortable with the sports and that kind of stuff like that. So that's a big way when we're thinking of casting for that project. Some of the things that we're thinking of trying for that. And then also in a project like this, right, there's also how you can insulate, non-name cast, whatever that means, right? Like cast who might be unknown, I guess, which is like, we have our two young teens, and buying their believability as two young teenagers who are still young, but you're not more concerned than you need to be for the situation they kept themselves caught up in and that kind of thing. And that might just mean there's a version of it where it's unknown people, right? But there's 2 or 3 roles that we have for potential to stunt cast with, right? That we're also thinking of. Like, one of the things that I thought of recently, we were talking about, which is as cheerleaders, there's a couple of scenes where they're with their cheer coach, right? But making that role, or casting that role with a really prominent choreographer, right? Who has a following, like, who can get to choreograph the dance and show their work, right? But also is a, if kind of cheeky cast, right? That people, it's like, and it's not like a huge performance lift, right? As by virtue of being choreographers, they likely have a lot of what would be innate to a performance of a cheer coach down. So like in my dreams, Sean Bankhead or Paris Goebel, or one of those people that,
amazing,
have done like, huge stuff for the Super Bowl or what have you, but also have an audience, right? That's really interested in seeing them do more stuff, but they might not as often get to do film stuff or be in the film and actually own their world in that way, kind of thing.
I have to say, like, when we were sort of picking up this again recently, and I was going into ChatGPT, was super, super helpful. Because being able to just come at it with every possible angle that we've thought of, right? I'm like, somebody who either has this skill or maybe both or this, and like all of these different things, like, and it scours everything, right? Like, so it's like, it was able for the first time to really put a list together of people that were not actors, but that were athletes or musicians or from other worlds, like you're saying, choreography, like all these different things that we can think of, and being able to say, like, and here are the parameters of age and XYZ, and it being able to do so much of the work that like could take forever. Is like half of the stuff of like, I wouldn't even know where to look. Like, if I'm not finding them on TikTok, like, I don't know where they live in terms of their social presence, right? Like,
oh, fair.
If you don't
That's
know who they are.
I had the complete opposite experience.
Really?
When I tried it in a thing. Yeah, where it pulled the list, like it pulled a list, but it was like, no, like none of them were the right type of people, right? For what I guess because I have in my head like who I want. Maybe my thing was too specific or like too narrow or what have you. Kind of thing. But I would say like of the list that it had given me, there was maybe like there was only 1 or 2 where I was like, oh yeah, kind of thing, where I had kind of forgotten about the person or something like that, but it didn't there was something where like put like some insane people on there, and I was like,
and I got those too, for sure. Like the feedback, like there was especially when it says, sometimes it'll say, it's just like, oof, that's a heavy lift, I'm gonna see what I can do, I'll give you the best I can give, right? Like, and they like clearly just find one lane. Like at one point, one of the prompts was like for athletic, right, and non-actors, and so it just was giving me like NBA stars and like, like just a ton of people, and had fudged or nudged the age group, and I'm like, this person's like 28 and is a very like popular NBA player, like it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to like, anyway, it's not perfect by any means, but there was definitely that list I sent you the other day, like 4 or 5 people that I had never seen or thought of. And just, I was kind of encouraged by it, of just like, oh, this is a way for us just to even start to broaden the pool a little bit. But we will see. I think we should set a goal for ourselves in terms of how many casting rejections are we looking.
Yeah, I feel like, well, I mean, there's a few kind of, I think, there's a few chickens or eggs here. I think the thing that's interesting with the casting part of it in terms of with this project, which is just that like the value of cast has shifted so significantly kind of thing, which is again to say that there's certain named people, there might be certain named people that well, here's the other thing too is you gotta audition, like however highfalutin the parameters you want them to be around auditioning, sure, but we gotta get a read in, like you and I, or I gotta see the thing, because again I get it to a certain degree, like certain names or what have you, or if you have certain status that it can be offer only, not in this project, you know what I mean? And so I think there's some people, what am I trying to say, like there, someone for example like Leah Jeffries, who we have like who's really front and center in our mind right now, I think is probably really feels like a unicorn, right? Has a really potent following, was just in a very popular installment, like a younger YA installment of a series that I think is wrapped, possibly or not, but it looks the right age, right? But has a lot of her career as it's been blossoming, whatever, has happened online, right? So from the looks of it, has had a really potent online audience, which is different. And I'm framing it this way because in so many ways, it really just it is not just about the amount of followers, right? As we've seen, like 5,000, if you have 5,000 people subscribe to something on Substack, right, that has more value than certain people that might have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok or something like that. It's not necessarily a clean number, but it's really assessing like how engaged is their audience, like do they show up for the films that they make and the work that they make. I know right now in the ether, Markiplier, the YouTuber, right, is a very big case study right now, right, with Iron Lung. And the reality that what you have is an audience that you can essentially engage and is down to activate with you when you're doing a thing. There are some people who have huge followings whose audience is as comfortable as they are just engaging with them online and liking a video, but they're never going to come out of, or much fewer of them are ever going to come out of their house and either pay for a ticket or pay for a hard product or that kind of thing. It's really not just about the talent is always top, but when it comes to kind of seeing the bankability or marketability, when you're talking about like the building the audience or seeing where the audience is, it's not just about the hard number. I think it really is about engagement, and not necessarily how they engage, are they commenting and stuff, but just how potent is the following, right? And the people that follow, how loyal are they to?
Yeah. And I think it has to make sense to their audience for them to, like, it's not like they're in a cult that they'll just do whatever the person they're following will say, like if it makes sense and they can see the relationship, then they'll be motivated. I mean, it really is just kind of like, it's just another layer, right, of being able to market to people and to get their attention so that they will give your film a shot. I think that that's sort of what it comes down to. That Iron Lung is a really interesting thing to, like, we should do a deep dive on that in a little bit, a future episode. I'd love to sort of get into like how he made that happen and like just like the result of it. It's very interesting. There's so many people always speculating about like what's happening in the industry and like where it's heading, and I mean, which is not new, but like this is a really different approach that sort of is an interesting, like you said, case study.
Yeah, we can get. I feel like he pulled a trigger that not in a lot of other people either creatively. That's not where their things align for them to be able to pull off making a movie and activating their audience that way, or because essentially what it is like the platform, right, which I think he's built for years and years and years and years, right, as an activated audience. I think there's we know some content creators who I just don't think would think like they could make their movie and just put it in the thing, right? But we're constantly saying, if you have even 50,000 followers, you have more of an audience, if even 10% of that engagement, than the average platform that you're going to put it on.
I mean, I might have my numbers wrong, but I think it debuted, like it was in over 4,000 theaters. And I think he had urged his audience to phone their theaters and say,
it was I think like 3,000 worldwide, and it did really well, but you got to have and like a lot of them were sold out. but you gotta have the numbers. That's building the relationship and the trust with your audience over that year. So I guess that's also what
them on the journey with you too, right? Like, I mean, definitely like asking them for help, not just saying, hey, when the time comes, will you buy a ticket? But it's just like, this is the plan. I need to help. I need to help getting it into theaters. They will put it into theaters, you know, like trying to activate and keep people invested. I mean, it's very smart. I think it was probably, there's as good a chance that he was just being very genuine about it as much as he was being strategic. But
I think so.
There's a real benefit to saying, hey, I want to do a thing. It's not the thing I normally do, but I really want to do it. Will you help me? And actively help me.
But this is what I'm saying, which is that still requires the relationship being built with your audience over years in order for you to pull that lever, right? Like it's how you've been, which is you trust me enough. There's some people who by virtue of like, you've given me such great content over the years that I've watched for free that like, yeah, I'm going to do, you know, whatever the thing is or what have you. La Russell, I was talking about him as a rapper, is a similar thing, right? But for years has been building this, this idea of like, yeah, I'm going to be just do this thing and put it out there, and that kind of going about it in that similar way. And then now I would say, like, I mean, I don't know the year count of how long he's been building, but like, you know, at least 5 years, because I've been following him for at least 4, right? So 4 or 5 years before I think that's starting to crescendo in a way that has, you know, people showing up. And he's still at a place where I think he just released that album. He's trying to do 100,000 album sales in 30 days, right? And didn't quite hit that goal. Needed to you know, gonna extend it or whatever kind of thing, which is, you know, not a failure by any means. But I'm just saying, I think this is what I mean by engaged, which is you have some people who are just online and it's to show the things that they're up to and they don't really think, and there's people who have been online and have built a relationship of trust with their audience one way or another, that by the time they do say this thing or what have you, or by the time they are in a movie or they get that little cameo, everyone is just so excited for them to do the next thing or what have you, because they have been on the journey.
I mean, for sure. I mean, here we are talking about it, right? Like, I didn't know anything about this project before it was in the theaters and did so well. But I do know things that I get invested in and am trying to help. When it works, you feel like very invested. Like it's a real connection that you can deepen by inviting your audience in to give you a hand, to help you out. And then if you succeed, it's like you can share that success with them too, right? I do think it's really quite sweet. I'm very charmed by this story.
Okay.
Very little.
So to kind of cap off where we're at with casting right now, I think right now Girls Like Us is the project front and center, though I do have things percolating for Meant to Be, but that can, you know, with different video. I think we want to reach out to a couple of the cast that we have in mind to even see if we can get them to kind of read the script. And start building from there. One of them, like I said, was Leah Jeffries. I think I'm missing a third part of her name. Please forgive me. And then there's some name EPs that we want to try and swing for. And a few of them are musicians, right? Where either the music or so, I mean, like if it were up to us, this would also have, and again, this is when we're starting to think of it, not just necessarily as a piece of storytelling now that we've written the script and done the deck and all of that kind of stuff, but we're thinking of it as where it sits in the marketplace and as a product to a certain extent. And also just the things that we've always loved about, you know, big blockbuster movies, right? Or the movie industry, which is, so one of those things being like looking at name EPs, there's certain musicians we have in mind and kind of having them oversee, right, the music supervision of it, or the idea of that kind of all girls soundtrack, right? I remember like Charlie's Angels, I think when it came out, but I know that Destiny's Child did a couple of original songs for that. So like putting together some kind of compilation for a soundtrack that features, right, like all female artists or that kind of thing. So a few of those people are, one is Pink that we think would be a good fit for it. Queen Latifah is another person that we think could be a good fit for it as a name EP that we like to reach out to. And then we've talked about it. We don't know. Pink and Queen Latifah, there's more evidence in terms of like, you know, Queen Latifah has Queen Collective and is like has a production company. But Missy Elliott would be a really interesting one as well too, that if we could. So we're gonna put out some feelers to those people and some name casts and see what happens. And, you never know. I mean, I guess actually we already put out one feeler and it wasn't rejected. Tania
right.
put out a feeler to Cody, our music supervisor that we worked with on Bria Mac the series, and then also Friendin' with Friends, to Pink's team to see if we can even at least get script and some kind of picture, what have you in front of her kind of thing. Yeah.
Little Sims is somebody that I also think,
yes,
they've been in film lately, and that would be amazing too.
Yeah, there's a lot of the music that it's definitely would love to be on the soundtrack right now is from Little Sims. Is like, I don't think their last album, but maybe the one just before that.
Yeah, exactly.
Has a lot of the songs, and so yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go out to all of them. There's so many things are like, it takes a village to raise a child and to make a movie. So
Very
yeah,
true.
I think different, and they would help, trigger other different things or what have you. But let's see what the response is first, and then we will go from there. So that's the rejection slate that we're teeing up for casting right now.
Yeah, I like that, the rejection slate. That's amazing.
Yeah. What's up to just get slammed right down?
That's right.
Never know. But yes, okay. So that's, if you have more questions on how we're approaching casting for anything or anything specific, obviously let us know, but we will keep you posted. We will be collecting rejections in many areas.
Forever. Okay, bye.